Well, what is going on, everyone? My name is B-Wise, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the brand new map Sakal coming to official DayZ in 2024. If you're unaware, DayZ Frostline was just announced on May 9th, an expansion for the game bringing new mechanics, a new winter environment, tons of new stuff, and a brand new map Sakal. With all of this information that came out, there's a ton to talk about, but today I want to focus solely on this new map. I'm going to start off with some general information I could find, and then we'll move into some secrets nestled within the showcase, and then finally I'll move into a bit of speculation on some big stuff I think I might have discovered. In this video, I'm going to use the information spoken straight from the development team during the Frostline announcement, along with some personal research and speculation to dig deep into this new map of Sakal. Also, a big thanks to the Running Man Z, as he allowed me to use his footage of the content creator showcase to take a closer look at the map. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go check that out down below in the description as well. So let's get started. What is Sakal? Sakal is a map developed for DayZ using the terrain of Tanoa rebuilt into a new map. It is set on a snow-covered volcanic archipelago about half the size of Chernarus and about 3 times the size of Namalsk. Sakal spans 83 kilometers squared, not including the ice sheets, and the island is said to be teeming with new challenges, new opportunities for survival, and tons of secrets. But let's back up. For those unaware of what I mean by a rebuilt terrain for DayZ, Tanoa was originally a map for Arma 3, which was a tropical island map with many volcanic regions. Tanoa spanned a vast 100 kilometers squared, and using this terrain, the DayZ devs have sculpted Sakal, meaning that these two islands will share similar mountain regions and topography while changing or erasing previous cities, villages, military bases, POIs, and so on. The DayZ devs have spent time reshaping the islands of Tanoa into something entirely different from its original source, and has turned 100 kilometers squared into 83 kilometers squared. This has been similar to previous map iterations in DayZ, with Chernarus and Livonia also originally coming from Arma and then later being made into a DayZ map. However, unlike those two maps, which are very similar to their Arma counterparts, Sakal is said to be entirely different and the complete opposite of Tanoa. So instead of a tropical island, we are getting a winter landscape. However, some have already pointed out a few similarities between the two islands and not just the mountainous regions. So we'll have to see in the coming weeks what exactly remains the same and what is different. The inspirations for this island is the island of Kamchatka, which is a snowy mountainous Russian island that is quite stunning. They mentioned that they drew inspirations as well from Iceland for some of its volcanic activity. It's confirmed to be located off the coast of Kamchatka in DayZ, while also drawing clear similarities and inspirations from the modded map Namalsk, which was created by the lead developer of DayZ, Sumrak. When looking at comparisons between Namalsk and Sakal, it's definitely safe to say that Sakal was heavily inspired by Namalsk and was even mentioned so by the developers. It has a similar color palette and design, but I do think it's safe to say that Sakal is going to feel much different than Namalsk. It's unknown at this point what directional flow it might have, whether it's north to south or south to north, but based on where the characters spawned in the content creator showcase, it appeared that it's going to be a northeast-southwest progression. My evidence for this being that it seemed like the sun was rising in the footage, and since the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, you can sort of gain somewhat of an understanding of the direction inside the showcase. If we are assuming that this is correct, when the character looked on the east, it was a clear horizon, there were no islands in the distance, while on the opposite side in the west, there was an island in the distance across the way. They also mentioned that before you head inland, you're going to want to prepare more so than any other map thus far, as the inland becomes very harsh to survive. As you travel further inland, it will get colder, and eventually the water sources will entirely freeze, and you will be forced to hunt, or you will be forced to fish, but on the coastline. And no, there were no talks or mentioning of ice fishing at this point for Sakal. As you travel through the island, you will see snowfall affect the environment in what was displayed as 3 distinct stages, as the foliage shifts from a light covering of snow with grass and normal trees, then to a second stage with frosted trees and a snow-covered ground, to a final stage of snow-covered trees and deep snow on the ground. They added that the further you go, the deeper snow won't affect any player movement in Sakal, but as you go further inland, you're going to see less populated areas and less houses, as most people avoided these deeply frozen areas. On top of that, the snowfall in the map will get worse as you travel inland, and perhaps more hectic as you ascend some of these taller volcanic mountains. They mentioned that as the snowfall picks up, it becomes much easier to get turned around and lost. One moment that I noticed was that at a certain point, the snowfall was nice and calm, as Sumrak was sort of standing on this mountain mountaintop. When Sumrak moved the camera into the air to give us a good panoramic view of all of the areas, once he reached a certain point, you can see that the snow kicked into an overdrive, sort of like a crazy blizzard, showing what it might be like as you ascend some of these mountains. The devs also confirmed that we can expect to see whiteouts and blizzards on the map, so maybe this is what we are seeing, or potentially it could get worse depending on your location. And before I go any further, I just want to invite you to come check out the live stream on Twitch. I do stream DayZ and we stream other survival games, and we have discussions all the time about DayZ, so if you want to chime in, it would be great to have another voice there, so just check it out if you want to. As you ascend in altitude in Sakal, the trees will get smaller and smaller, and they've made it so that the northern facing slopes will generally have more snowfall than the southern facing sides. This will also give players other natural ways of navigating without having, say, a compass. There was also a moment in the developer showcase where Sumrak stumbled into some bones and remains of a reindeer, and then wolves immediately jumped onto Sumrak's character. While this might have been a scripted event, this could mean we are getting more localized locations where you might know where to find or stay away from animals. I think of this as such as like a wolf's den or maybe a bear's cave. The island is going to have its own unique wildlife, meaning we won't be seeing chickens, deer, and the common wildlife of Chernarus, and instead we're going to be seeing reindeer and rabbits. They went further to mention that more wildlife is planning to be added. Sakal will also have its own unique fish like steelhead trout, and unlike the island of Namalsk, you'll be able to gather worms on the island for fishing. You can expect that this map will have its own unique clothing items, and the devs said that they hope that it feels special and unique from Livonia and Chernarus. Furthermore, you're going to be able to use your official character on Sakal and then take them back to Chernarus, keeping all your gear as long as you're on official. This means that when you get geared up on Sakal with all your winter gear, it's going to look pretty cool to tear it up around Livonia and Chernarus. If you're curious about the story of Sakal, they haven't shared too much, but there is this quote on the Steam page. I wake up from a nightmare, face down in a black sand. Looks like I made it to Sakal. But where are the others I've seen when boarding the refugee ships from the mainland? Has the Sakal archipelago been overturned already? Only one way to find out. Maybe hinting we could be getting some extra lore in the map different from before. The devs did share that the island was viewed early on as a safe haven away from the virus, but it was also a restricted island because it has a naval base, and therefore not many were allowed to travel to the island. As such, the developers wanted to use the environment to tell the story, detailing locations where they attempted to stop the infection from entering. They said in this map there will be an emphasis on environmental storytelling, and we can expect to learn more about what happened just by exploring and discovering the map. They went on to show off what they are calling the biggest harbor on the island, and we were able to see signs of attempted infection control, and we also saw a glimpse of this military base that will be inside the harbor right off the coast. They went on to mention that there's going to be tons of secrets and also industrial locations in the map to explore, with notable POIs mentioned like the volcano, the hot springs, and a geothermal power plant. They added that some of these POIs will have their own unique functions. For example, there is some sort of volcano sickness that is a new disease, and the hot springs themselves near the geothermal power plant will provide an area of warmth to escape the bleak, cold outdoors. With this being DayZ's first winter environment officially, this island will bring new assets to DayZ while also reusing some assets from Chernarus. What we also noticed with the help of fellow creator LRP, make sure you guys check him out down below as he helped us make some of these connections, is that we are looking to be getting a full list of Arma 3 assets added to DayZ. They went on to mention that most of the buildings that they are planning to reuse from Chernarus will be mainly the wooden cabins, while other buildings are getting recolored if they are reusing them to provide a different feel from Chernarus. Those who are familiar with Namalsk, this is very similar style to what we experienced on there. They said they want the cities and villages of Sakal to be colorful but feel reconstructed and messy, with tons of trash littering the ground. You can expect to find salvaged fences and improvised structures on the island, with heavy fishing supplies like cages, boats, and more, all on the coastlines. I even noticed moments where areas looked to have unique traversal, like there was these crates standing right on the other side of the fence, which seemed like they might allow unique angles in different gunfights. Sakal is going to have its own unique ambient music, separate from the new tracks that were just added to the game, and they said that they've been working on this map for a total of 6 months, and we can expect a ton of brand new assets to DayZ with this expansion. They went on to add that even after the map is released, they will continue to add to it and expand on the map just as they have done with the previous maps in DayZ. While they did some flying around and showcasing of a few areas in Sakal, they were careful not to show off too much and were moving the camera in a very careful way around certain zones. There was a point when they got to this valley in an attempt to show off the geothermal hot springs, and Sumrak was careful to curve the camera around very sharp and even mentioned he didn't want to show off too much in this zone. But we did get a glimpse of what is going on, so I think we can expect some secrets nestled deep in this valley. They went on to point out that a pipeline is going to run across the island that is connected to the plants with geothermal vents all around the hot springs. They went on to say that as you traverse the island, you will come to areas where you are forced to travel over a choke point or swim on a different route and use the ice sheets for travel. And finally, they said that they are planning an in-game minigame area similar to the Livonia bunker, so think lever mechanics and water, maybe something similar to that effect. Now finally, bust out the tinfoil hat, because this is where it all gets interesting, because I'm going to do a little bit of speculating. While it wasn't directly mentioned by the devs, with a bit of research, it seems that there's another island that might have been a third inspiration for Sakal, Sakhalin. And while it's pure speculation, this island might give us a bit of insight into what we might see in the future of DayZ. The island of Sakhalin is between Russia and Japan, where it was once split between the two regions, Russia claiming one half and Japan the other, and after several conflicts over many years, including World War II, Russia eventually claimed the entire island of Sakhalin. This island is also off the coast of Kamchatka, just like Sakal. Its central forests are home to more than 2,000 Sakhalin brown bears, which are often spotted even on the outskirts of the cities. Otters and sables are also common sightings, and up north there are numerous reindeer. Apparently whales are also a common sighting along the east coast of the island, and up on the shores it's possible to spot northern fur seals and sea lions. The climate on Sakhalin is generally cool and humid, and in the depth of winter, temperatures as cold as -54 Celsius have been reported, and it's not uncommon to see floating ice around the island even in the midst of summer. On top of that, generally the north is much colder than the south, and the snowfall is heavy, with the mountains accumulating 5 meters of snow or more on a regular basis. Does this all sound familiar? Well, let's keep going. Sakhalin is also rich in natural gas and oil and is Russia's fourth wealthiest federal subject. The island of Sakhalin is known to have an economy that is mostly based on the fishing exports of the island, and additionally, the island has a high number of boats and docks for its size. Sakhalin uses a railway system on the island and is known to have a high concentration of energy resource like oil and geothermal sources. And following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Sakhalin experienced an oil boom with Russian and foreign oil companies pouring into the island, bringing investment in the island's infrastructure. This came with a price though, as pipelines and logging posed a significant threat to the island's spectacular nature. Well, if you tie all this together, Sakhalin undoubtedly seems to have some inspiration for Sakal and not just the name. Well, knowing that traditionally Bohemia likes to recreate real locations, I pulled up images of the geothermal plant on Sakhalin, and I can definitely see some similarities in some of these images and some of the areas that Sumrak was careful not to show. And on top of that, if you're curious, Sakhalin is also known to have oil rigs deep out on the ice sheets, which is something that Namalsk received in its last update. Is this all starting to sound coincidental? If we are assuming that Sakhalin will have inspiration for Sakal, as far as secrets, there are tons of secrets that you can have on Sakal. Even back in the 50s, there are talks of ammunition factories and other bases on the southern island, and there are also known naval bases on the island of Sakhalin, which have long been since abandoned. Just check out some of these photos. And as a last bit of speculation, as you can see, the island of Sakhalin is sort of a line, which might be a hint at the name Frostline, especially if you were to restructure Tanoa as they said they have done in the shape of Sakhalin. Maybe this is what we might be getting for DayZ Frostline. As I said, the developers haven't mentioned directly that Sakhalin was an inspiration, but it's undoubtedly, in my opinion, part of their inspirations for the map. I would wager we might be seeing some oil rigs, geothermal plants, some kind of strange volcano base, wildlife like salmon, and more. Overall, I think there is a ton of information here to be excited about, but I'm interested in hearing what you think about Sakal after watching the video. So leave a comment, let me know. Are you excited? Anyways, thank you so much for watching the video. Please drop a like, please subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys at the next one.